My name is Makiko Ara. I am Kendo Rokudan Denshi, and I'm an instructor at the Renbu dojo in Vancouver, Canada.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Marsten. I am a Rokudan Renshi, and I belong to the Highline Kendo Club in Seattle, Washington.
My name is Jane Higa. I am Sandang, and I'm the current president of the Kendo Club at the University of Washington.
I started Kendo because I really didn't have a choice. My father was the head instructor at Vancouver Kendo Club for many years. His name is Akira Hayashi. And as a young child, I used to be taken to practice, and I would cry all the way there and all the way home. And eventually my father gave up, and I took up other interests when I was younger. When I was about 12 years old, my father came to me and said that if I didn't start Kendo now, that I would never be allowed to do Kendo again. And so at that point, I felt that that would kind of be sad that I wouldn't be able to pursue Kendo. So I dove in, and I really haven't looked back ever since. My motivations have obviously changed through the years. As a competitor, I definitely had a strong desire to compete and do well, and put that energy towards training. And as I've gotten older, other challenges, other opportunities like grading and events and things like that have motivated me to continue. And more recently, as I've become a mother and my children have started Kendo, that has also been a driving force for myself, and also to develop the dojo as a whole.
I started Kendo when I was about 7 years old. I started because my dad made me. It is not still why I do Kendo. It is mostly because I love the people. I love the discipline of it, and I do enjoy the leadership aspects that it has brought to me over the years, and how I continue to develop those skills and then translate them actually in my workplace.
I started Kendo when I first moved to Washington. I wanted something to do to help me stay active. So my mother found an advertisement in our city flyer that said that there was a local dojo nearby. So I decided to try Kendo out. When I was younger, I honestly continued because I was stubborn, and quitting was never an option for me once I started something. So that is why I continued. But definitely now that has changed. I have a goal in mind. I want to improve my Kendo. I've really grown to love this martial arts, so that is why I continue.
So first and foremost, my main instructor for most of my life had been my father, Akira Hayashi. So he was a big influence, obviously, on my Kendo, and also gave me a lot of opportunities to train with other dojos around the city, and also went on to competitions in other areas of Canada and the US. So he was very committed to my Kendo development as he ran the dojo as well. I think obviously he provided me with a lot of guidance in Kendo, but a large influence that he had on me was from watching him run the dojo, and the interpersonal relationships that he had with members and families of the dojo, and also with other dojos and with the community at large. So I think that had been a big influence on me, and I value the importance of community within Kendo development. Other senses that have had an influence on me, in more recent years, I've had the opportunity and privilege to meet Michio Nemoto sensei, who is a Nanadan sensei in Osaka, Japan. She's a good family friend, and I've had a chance to meet her in Japan, as well as her visiting here as well. She is really a force to be reckoned with, and as an older Kenshi, I see her as a role model, and I hope that someday I can be as strong as she is.
As I got my start in Kendo through my dad, that is also the same sensei. That is the most specific person that has had the impact on my Kendo over the years. Other than that, it's been a few senseis here and there. Have not had the level of engagement, since I never really moved away, very far from, in terms of exposure to other senseis. I do, however, outside of the ones that teach me directly, have a lot of respect and a lot of admiration for obviously Mariyama Sensei, I think she's 5-time All Japan champion and has come over to Seattle for our women's tournament every 3 years. So having her come has been an inspiration, watching her as she grows older and as her kendo matures and how she works through that.
Definitely Jeffrey Marsten Sensei Senior. He was one of my first sensei and coaches that helped me develop my kendo when I was younger. So um, yeah, he taught me waza, different techniques, how to score points, but most importantly for me, he taught me how to do beautiful kendo, which is what I strive to do consistently.
Now, unpacking whether my training was different because I was a woman, I think not. I think I went through very similar training and had the expectations of training just as hard as other men and boys growing up and competing. Now, thinking about what it is to be a sensei, the word sensei just implies that you are going ahead of someone, that you've had more experience, you are one step before the people behind you. And so I think creating that path and having those opportunities created by the senseis that were ahead of me and following in the path, I think the most important thing for me is to create an environment, a community that is better than I've found it. And obviously, being a woman, I take that responsibility seriously, especially for other girls that are behind me. And I hope to continue in that path.
Being a woman in kendo and training to be a sensei is a different path. It is. And I do think, at least as far as the standard path, and I would say standard just because it is a male-dominated sport, but it is different. There are aspects that are a little bit harder in terms of access to information. Sometimes it's a matter of getting a seat at the table that you might not have been already had. You might not have senseis invest in you as much, depending on whether or not they think that you are worth their time or their potential. I've definitely encountered that, particularly in other countries, not necessarily here in the Pacific Northwest or with some of the dojos here, but I have noticed that there's a difference. It does make it so you have to train a little bit harder. You definitely have to be a lot smarter about how you train and how you use that information and how you present yourself as well.
First off, I am not a sensei. I do help teach and lead at times, and I hope to be able to be worthy of that title in the future, but as of right now, I do not consider myself as sensei. But concerning my training and the knowledge that I have to help me teach my kohai and the new beginners that come into the club, we all learn from different sensei. We gain different insights, and that doesn't really change just because one person is a man and another is a woman. But I have been able to gain more exposure to women sensei seminars and practices specifically designed for women kenshi. So in that sense, I have been lucky to have the ability to be able to learn from many women sensei and gain more perspectives and insights that have helped me in my training and allowed my knowledge to grow, which leads into when I'm teaching my kohai or the beginners that come into the club.
Now, I guess we have to sort of look at stereotypes of what women are considered. So these are things like women are more nurturing and kind and patient and self-reflective, maybe perhaps analytical and smarter. Then yes, absolutely. I think those things help for any woman to be a better instructor, a better leader, a better teacher. I think those are all very important traits for being a teacher. And I think that's what women have to bring to the table. All of those traits that make us women, those stereotypes, frankly, but they are true. I think we are more nurturing and we are more understanding and more inclusive. And combine that with the training and experience that we have inside the dojo and outside, I think any dojo would benefit from having a female leaders within their dojos. So absolutely, I think being a woman gives me an advantage in being an instructor. And perhaps if you don't believe me, you might want to ask some of the students at my dojo. So speaking to what kind of an instructor I am, I think that I am a very observant instructor, and I have an ability to sort of see students within Kendo, but also their personalities, and adapt the training to them. Understanding what individual students need and what motivates them, and I'm able to pivot. And I think that comes with the sort of the empathy that women have, and being in the sort of situation throughout their lives, that they can be more empathetic and adjust.
Again, being smarter, communication style, women do have the upper hand when it comes to communication style, I will say, on average, a little bit better at massaging those messages and finding those alternative ways to communicate with folks or meet them on the way that they need to be communicated to, which I do know is a departure for some of the classic teaching methods. But as a woman, you also have to be really careful not to get classified into certain places that you can't get out of. For example, it just comes with it, the mom category. Women of a certain age, or if you have kids, and you start to help out with the kids, or you get classified as a mom, and you don't get necessarily brought into larger discussions or more advanced topics, or get to work with the more advanced students as a result.
But when I do have opportunities to teach, there have been times when I feel like students aren't taking me seriously. This might be just because of my personality in general. I'm not the type of person who can directly say what they want all the time, but I often wonder if that might have been different if I was a man instead of a woman, if their perspective of me would have been any different. So along with just working to be more direct in general, I try to be more direct in the way I teach as well, making sure that the students do take me seriously.
The physiological differences between men and women are less prominent in Kendo. The senseis ahead of us have told us that you have to conquer yourself first before you can conquer your opponent. And I think women are better able to do that. I think we use our brains more than our muscles in order to beat our opponents. And I think that is the beauty of Kendo, that you can play a match against your opponent, and it isn't all about speed and strength. So from that perspective, I think that Kendo, women's Kendo, is much more interesting than men's Kendo, and I'm really looking forward to the direction that women's Kendo will take in the next decade or two.
Some of the benefits to being a woman in Kendo, well, there's definitely a lot of room to grow. There is some glass ceiling, but there's also a lot of opportunity in terms of leading the way. So if you're the kind of person that likes to blaze the trail, or lead by example, this works out really well. Personally, I'm a very big fan of leading by example, and I do feel that there is a karmatic kind of piece to that, to know and to do the same thing. So being able to pitch in where is needed, but also at the same time, that community of women, because it is smaller, tends to be more collaborative at the same time. So it is very nice in terms of, you tend to find the four other women in the room, and you bond together and go from there. It's nice to have at least one thing in common right off the bat.
One benefit specifically for me is the ability to be able to encourage other female kenshi who may want to start kendo. Especially in the university club, a lot of our members are experiencing kendo for the first time, and but at the same time, members are very disproportionately male. And we had experience once where there was one female member who asked before joining if there were any women in the club, and I'm glad that I was able to be in this leadership position, and in a position where other women and girls can look at the club and see that this martial art and the club is possible and open to anyone who wants to do it, and not be discouraged because there are not that many female members.
So I've had a pretty busy life in the last 15 years. Bought a home, had 2 children, started a business. And day to day, life is pretty busy for me, and I don't have a lot of time for your traditional hobbies. But I think I am a creator. I like to create things with my hands. Woodworking is one of my hobbies. During COVID, I built a woodshed and a bike rack for my family. I also love to cook. That's a big passion of mine. I also like to sew. In our house right now, I sewed all the curtains when we first moved into our home. So I think, if anything, my passion is creating. And I think that translates to Kendo, because a lot of times you are building a community. You're also required to put together events and things like that. And I think my sort of creator hat comes out and is effective in those areas. I also have other more, I guess, common hobbies. I love to travel. So if you follow me on Instagram, before COVID, I was often going off to different places, whether it was for work or kendo or for pleasure. I love to travel, and I also love red wine.
I used to enjoy crafting a lot. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old now, 2-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. So I don't actually get to do a lot of that anymore. Most of my activities revolve around, outside of kendo, their projects and whatnot, until at least they get a little bit older and a little more independent. What I do for a living, though, is very different from that. I'm in digital marketing, so I work on major retailer platforms like Amazon, Walmart, Target, Instacart, you name it. One of my jobs is to figure out how to build out advertising models and go-to-market strategies for my agency on how we're going to execute on those services for our clients.
Honestly, kendo is my life. I don't have much hobbies outside of kendo, but I do enjoy art. I like photography. I like crafts and building and making things with my hands. I am currently a computer science student, but I will be working as a software engineer after I graduate this year.
So this is an interesting question. I think a lot of us can relate that we have our compartment of friends. We have our work friends, we have our friends from childhood, we have our friends from university, and then we have our kendo friends. And a lot of times those groups of friends don't cross-pollinate, well, at least that's for me. And it is absolutely true. I think growing up, I grew up in a very white neighborhood, white communities. So the last thing I wanted to be known for is the Asian kid that did martial arts. So I didn't talk about kendo too much amongst my peers growing up in high school and even through university as well. So a lot of people that I was friends with didn't really even know that I went to the World Championships earlier in my life. But for the friends that do know, my childhood friends that I've continued friendships with over the years, they're really surprised that I continue to do kendo. I think for a lot of us, if we were really active in sport, whether it's hockey or soccer or gymnastics, most of us, at a certain point, we sort of retire out of those activities. That is not as possible to continue. And I think kendo has afforded us with that opportunity to continue in the community in different ways, of course, but it's been a wonderful life experience and part of my life journey for sure. The friends that have come to see kendo, they're always so shocked at how intense it is and all the screaming and hitting, and I think that comes to them as a surprise when they see it. But overall, friends, family, even co-workers have always been very supportive of my kendo.
My work friends, as far as what they think about kendo, or my work colleagues, they think it's really cool. To be fair, it is really cool to get to go into those team icebreakers and say things like, I have a 6-degree black belt in kendo, and they just kind of watch and see what the reactions are. Usually it's pretty whoa. Other than that, my family obviously comes and watches. I think they're already there, so that kind of happens. My husband, who does not do kendo, does come and watch, and he tries to bring the kids, but again, they're a little bit too little to understand. And as anyone knows, in a kendo tournament, you have to have patience, and you have to hang out for probably about 4 hours before you'll actually get to see the person you came to watch play. And go figure, 2-year-olds don't have that level of patience. So maybe we'll get there someday, but in the meantime, he tries. Let's put it that way.
my friends think I'm cool, or at least I hope they think I'm cool. My family has supported me, but they don't come to much of my events, so they they've actually haven't seen me do kendo that much, and I'm not the type of person to share a lot of my personal experiences with other people, so they might be a little surprised if they ever come to see me um, in practice or in a match.
So I believe that anything worth doing is tough. If it's easy, well, you can take part in it, but it probably isn't a huge benefit to you. And to be frank, kendo is tough. It is tough physically, it's tough mentally. It is not for the soft at heart. So I think for any girl who is motivated and wants to work hard and be rewarded, I think kendo is fantastic. And it will build your physical strength and your mental strength, of course. But I think for parents of girls as well, kendo in its very supportive environment, I think it is great for building self-esteem and self-confidence in girls. And frankly, any sport, really being focused on a sport is highly beneficial for all girls.
For any women or girls out there that are interested in kendo or thinking about taking up kendo, obviously I'm supposed to say I totally recommend it and you should absolutely do it. Yes, but I also want to, and this is what I tell every beginner, man or woman or child or whatever, is if you don't like to get hit, this isn't going to work out. And I don't mean hit in like a get punched in the face kind of way, but that kind of contact. And you have to recognize that when you start out at the bottom and you're not going to be good at it, and it is going to be difficult, and you're going to have to dig in, and you're going to have to invest. And kendo is very much what you put into the floor, you will start to see things that come out of it. It is not a wishful thinking kind of thing. So I would say give it a try. I think the personality of the dojo and the other folks in the dojo will do a lot to further that decision, or whether or not you stick with it. Honestly, if nobody talks to you, you're not going to want to stick around. But if you are finding that there are other groups of women there that you can connect with and go out with afterwards, that goes a long way, and you can start to really build the social group that goes with kendo, which makes it much more appealing for me.
If you want to do it and are interested, then just go for it. Just try it out. If kendo's not a fit for you, then that's totally fine. But if you're interested, just give it a try. If anybody ever makes you feel like you can't do kendo because you are a woman or a girl, then don't listen to them, because they are very wrong.
So I've often been asked how the experience within kendo can be improved for women. And being in different communities and different environments, whether it's work or with social engagements, or even through my children's sports and activities, I often see that right now with the movement of equality, that the community at large is trying to make things equal. And my feeling is that equality doesn't necessarily mean the same. So what that means is that a lot of things within kendo, if I speak specifically to kendo, have been created through the lens of men. And that's a lot in a lot of areas, whether it's corporate world or even in school environments. Everything is originally in the last 50 to 100 years created by men for men. And women being involved in these things has been a gradual thing. And so I think the important thing is to make sure that we elevate the experience for women. So we do more for women than we do for men, from our perspective right now, because the playing ground is not equal. So if we treat girls and say, well, we're treating the girls the same way we're treating the boys, it isn't the same, because our starting point is not balanced. So I think I would ask that give that leaders and parents and even people that support these young athletes, whether they're friends or family, that you give them more opportunities. Create spots for girls, specifically for girls. Give them more opportunity. Give leadership roles to women that are really working hard in the space. And I think we will then start to see a balance as those women start to feel empowered. So I obviously feel very strongly about this. I would say also to families and teachers, whether they be the kendo instructor or just school or other activities, teachers, anyone that's around young people. I would really encourage you to be an advocate for girls, help them create opportunities for themselves, create safe spaces where they can thrive. I think everyone needs an advocate, and I think I've been very lucky to have many advocates, starting with my father, but also other family members and bosses I've had in the past who have, if I've had to take time off from work, have been very supportive. Obviously, my husband also very supportive in all of the endeavors that I pursue within kendo. So please be an advocate for a woman or girl around you.
For guys, advice that I would give for guys that are looking to help women's kendo in general grow, survive after the pandemic, and thrive. There's a few things you can do. One is, ask. Another thing is always, even if that's not it, it's just an observational piece. So knowing when you can see that women aren't being included or girls aren't being included, how can you include them without obviously making it very obvious? One thing that I've noticed in particular is, that was helpful, that's been helpful recently is, during tournaments, a lot of times we'll have a women's open division. And sometimes, Shimpan just don't recognize that there are women in there that are 4th degree, 5th degree, 6th degree black belt. And they don't recognize that the Shimpan that they put out there are not commiserate with the skill level that is being shown on the floor. So if that was a men's division of 4 dan and above, you would not put 3 dan Shimpan out there. So being cognizant just of little things like that, creating equality, creating inequality whenever you see it. Just thinking about it from a, how would I have approached that situation?
Encourage women who are interested. If you're talking to your female friends or family who show interest, invite them to try it out. Encourage them that they can do it, that it is possible for them. Maybe when showing examples, show women kendo footage, and just communicating openly that there are women in kendo and who excel in kendo, and is just really important. Also, speaking from personal experience, for male kenshi, if a student asks a woman kenshi for help, don't cut in and start teaching them yourselves. Allow women to speak and teach. Don't take that opportunity away from them or that opportunity for that student to learn from them.
Wow, that's a big question. So we have to understand that we don't do kendo in a void. There's a whole society around us that puts different pressures on us. I think as society as a whole, I think if we can support women in sport, that would go a long way in improving the experience of girls and women within kendo. Also, I think girls that decide to continue in kendo are actually more ambitious than their male counterparts. I think we do meet different barriers, and there are microaggressions that we experience all the time, yet we continue to do it. So if we can improve the experience, allow girls to continue doing kendo for longer throughout their lives, I think it would make the kendo community at large much better. So please support any girls or women that are around you within the community.
Today, if I could change one thing for women in kendo, it would be probably around that equality piece more than anything else. It's I get it. It's not quite, we're not the same size. We're not as big. We're not as fast. I would say though that's where there's more interest in watching, in growing it. It is definitely, while we might not be as big or as fast in some cases, there definitely are some ladies that are, and encouraging the viewability of that. So it's not just about watching the All Japan men's tournament, it's also watching the All Japan women's tournament. It's about recognizing those things that we can learn from those ladies and just talking about them as if they were the same as anyone else's. And again, it's that seat at the table piece, right? So making sure that women are represented in some of the decisions that are made, whether or not that is return to practice protocols, whether or not that is the planning of the holiday party or various outings. If you're going to plan a women's seminar, you should probably make sure the women have a fair amount of say in, the activities and what's happening. Supporting those events is a big one. It could be even just showing up, and not just showing up and staring because that's creepy, but showing up and helping out. What can you do to bring items? Bring items like bring a cooler full of popsicles, whatever. Just do whatever it is that you can to support without it being overt.
It is getting better, but through media, I find that there's hardly any women kenshis that come up first. You actually have to search and look for videos specifically for women's kendo on YouTube or Google. I hope that there can be more representation of women in kendo in the media than we have right now in the future.